Have you ever been kicked out of your own workplace? This morning at O'Hare Airport, I watched something that still gives me chills. A black female pilot, Captain Avery Washington, got told to wait outside because staff didn't believe she was real. They thought she was playing dress-up in a pilot's uniform. 7 minutes later, the entire ground crew got fired. But that was just the beginning of the most incredible reversal of power I've ever witnessed. My name is Marcus Thompson, and I've been covering aviation stories for 15 years. I've seen discrimination before, but nothing like this. What started as blatant prejudice turned into a masterclass in strategic justice that left everyone speechless. The woman they tried to humiliate wasn't just any pilot. She was someone they should have never messed with. If you're watching from anywhere in America, drop your city in the comments below, because this story affects all of us. And hit that subscribe button for Black Stories box, because what happened next will completely change how you think about fighting back against injustice. Trust me, you won't see this coming. It was 6:47 a.m. on a freezing Monday morning in February when I first noticed the commotion at Gate B-17. I was nursing my third cup of coffee waiting for my connecting flight to Denver when a voice cut through the morning terminal buzz like a knife. "Security, we have an impersonator at Gate B-17. The voice belonged to Brenda Kowalski, a ground staff member I'd seen working this terminal for years. She was pointing an accusatory finger at a woman in a pristine Skyways Airlines uniform. The woman she was targeting stood about 5'6" with natural hair pulled back in a neat bun. Her uniform was immaculate, 4 gold captain stripes gleaming on her shoulders, silver wings polished to perfection, regulation, black shoes that reflected the terminal lights like mirrors. She carried herself with the quiet confidence I'd learned to recognize in seasoned pilots over my years covering aviation. What struck me immediately was how calm she remained as chaos erupted around her. Captain Avery Washington, though I didn't know her name yet, held an expensive leather briefcase and wore what looked like a Rolex on her wrist. Everything about her screamed professional pilot, yet Brenda was treating her like a common criminal. "Ma'am, I don't know where you got that costume, but you need to leave this secure area immediately," Brenda announced, her voice carrying across 3 gate areas. Her tone was theatrical, almost performative, as if she was putting on a show for the growing audience. Passengers started pulling out phones. A teenager with purple hair and multiple piercings began live streaming on TikTok, whispering urgently into her camera. "Y'all, there's some serious drama going down at O'Hare right now. This lady in a full pilot uniform is getting completely harassed." The businessman next to me lowered his Wall Street Journal to watch. 2 college students stopped scrolling through Instagram to record. Within minutes, a crowd of 20 people had gathered, all of them sensing they were witnessing something significant. "Playing dress-up is illegal in airports," Brenda continued, her voice dripping with authority she clearly enjoyed wielding. "Real pilots don't look like. Well, you people know what I mean." The comment hit the terminal air like a physical slap. Several passengers gasped audibly. Others exchanged uncomfortable glances. The teenager's livestream viewer count started climbing rapidly. 50 viewers, then 150, then 400. Comments flooded in faster than she could read them. "This is insane. Call the news. This is straight-up racism." Captain Washington reached slowly into her jacket pocket, moving deliberately to avoid escalating the situation. Her movements were precise, controlled, the kind of careful body language I'd seen from military personnel who understood how quickly situations could spiral out of control. Her pilot's license emerged first, a laminated Federal Aviation Administration certificate with her photo ratings and medical clearance clearly visible. Even from my position 15 feet away, I could see the official government seals and holographic security features. "Here's my license," she said quietly, her voice steady and professional despite the growing chaos around her. Brenda waved it away without even glancing at it. Anyone can fake those online nowadays. You see how they try to scam their way into restricted areas. I've been working airport security for 15 years, and I know a fake when I see one. That's when I knew I was witnessing something historically significant. I quietly started recording on my phone, keeping it low and discreet. As a journalist who'd covered everything from airline mergers to aviation disasters, I'd learned to recognize moments when ordinary incidents become extraordinary stories. The dismissal was so complete, so willfully ignorant that it felt rehearsed. Brenda wasn't interested in evidence. She'd already made up her mind based purely on what Captain Washington looked like. This wasn't incompetence. This was deliberate prejudice being performed for an audience. Captain Washington pulled out her employee ID badge next, holding it steady so the growing crowd could see. The plastic card bore the Skyways Airlines logo, her photo, and a magnetic stripe for security doors. Her employee number was clearly visible, SA 4472. The hire date showed the 15th of March 2019, nearly 6 years with the company. "Ma'am, I've been flying for Skyways for 6 years," she said, her voice remaining level and professional despite the increasingly hostile atmosphere. "I'm Captain Washington, assigned to Flight 447 to Denver this morning. You can verify this in your computer system." Brenda barely glanced at the ID before dismissing it with a wave. "Look, I don't care what Walmart costume department you raided. Real airline pilots go through years of training at military academies or fancy flight schools. They don't just hand out pilot licenses to random people off the street." The teenager, Perste, I later learned her name was Skylar Martinez, repositioned her phone for a better angle. Her viewer count had exploded to 2500 and climbing. Comments were flooding in from across the country. "Someone needs to call this airline. This is disgusting. I'm never flying Skyways again." The crowd around gate B17 was growing by the minute. Passengers from gates B15, B16, and B19 had abandoned their seats to watch the unfolding drama. Business travelers, families with children, college students, all of them sensing they were witnessing something that would be talked about for years. Then co-pilot Daniel Kim appeared at the crew entrance, rolling his regulation flight bag behind him. He was a compact Asian-American man in his early 30s, wearing the same Skyways uniform with 3 stripes on his shoulders. His face brightened when he spotted Captain Washington, then immediately darkened as he took in the scene. "Captain Washington," he called out confidently, striding over with the easy familiarity of someone who'd worked with her countless times. "Ready for another smooth flight to Denver. Weather looks perfect today." Brenda whirled around like she'd been personally insulted. "Oh, so now you're both in on this scam. What is this? Some kind of elaborate con game?" Daniel's jaw dropped in genuine confusion. "Scam, Brenda? What are you talking about? She's been my captain for 8 months. We flew the Miami route together just last week. We've done probably 50 flights together. I don't know what game you two are playing." Brenda's voice rose higher, taking on the desperate edge of someone who realizes their position is becoming untenable but refuses to back down. "But I'm not falling for it. Real pilots have proper documentation, real credentials, and follow established procedures." Captain Washington opened her flight bag with practiced efficiency, the movements so smooth and automatic they spoke of thousands of repetitions. Inside sat her flight manual, a thick book filled with highlighted passages and handwritten notes. Aviation charts for the Denver route marked with her careful annotations. Weather printouts she'd reviewed at 5 a.m. showing wind patterns and potential turbulence. And her logbook, a leather-bound record showing 3847 flight hours across 12 different aircraft types. She placed each item methodically on the counter like a lawyer presenting evidence to a jury. Her movements were too precise, too prepared. Most pilots don't carry their entire professional history in their flight bag. It was almost as if she'd expected this exact confrontation. "Here's my route study for today's flight," she said, her tone remaining steady and matter-of-fact. "Current weather conditions at Denver International updated as of 5:30 this morning. My logbook with FAA required currency training completed last month. Night landings instrument approaches emergency procedures. And here's my medical certificate renewed 60 days ago with a clean bill of health." Each document was pristine, organized, official. The kind of meticulous record-keeping that spoke of someone who took their profession seriously and had nothing to hide. Brenda swept the papers aside with her forearm in a gesture of pure contempt. Several documents fluttered to the terminal floor like fallen leaves scattering across the polished tiles where hundreds of travelers walked daily. "Anyone can print fake paperwork," she announced loudly enough for 3 gate areas to hear. Her voice carried that particular authority that comes from someone who's never been seriously challenged. "I've seen this before. People trying to sneak into cockpits, steal planes, commit terrorism. You think I'm stupid?" The word terrorism rippled through the crowd like an electric shock. Several passengers stepped back instinctively, suddenly seeing Captain Washington through a different lens. A security announcement crackled overhead about remaining vigilant and reporting suspicious activity, timing that seemed almost orchestrated. Skylar's phone screen showed 4100 viewers. Comments flooded in faster than anyone could read. "Someone call the news. This is 2024, and we're still dealing with this. Get her badge number. I'm sharing this everywhere." Captain Washington knelt calmly to collect her, scattered documents moving with the same deliberate grace she'd shown throughout this ordeal. As she stood, something caught the overhead lighting, a badge clipped inside her briefcase that I couldn't quite read from my angle, but it looked official and expensive. Daniel noticed it too. His eyes widened almost imperceptibly. The terminal was transforming into something between a circus and a courtroom. Normal airport operations continued around us. Announcements for boarding flights, the rumble of baggage carts, the distant roar of jet engines. But everyone in our immediate area was focused on this unfolding drama. Brenda, Daniel said carefully, his voice taking on the patient tone of someone trying to reason with an increasingly unreasonable person. Maybe you should call your supervisor or check the crew manifest system. Captain Washington is scheduled for this flight. Her name is literally on today's crew assignment. I don't need to check anything. Brenda snapped, her defensiveness growing more pronounced with each passing minute. I use my eyes and common sense, and both tell me this person doesn't belong in a cockpit. I know what real pilots look like. Flight attendant Rachel Torres arrived next her rolling bag, clicking rhythmically across the terminal tiles. She was a Latina woman in her 40s, with the efficient movements of someone who'd spent years navigating airport crowds. She took in the scene quickly, scattered documents, Skylar's livestream with its growing viewer count, the crowd of rubbernecking passengers, and the obvious tension crackling between Captain Washington and the ground staff. "What's happening here?" she asked Daniel quietly, though her voice carried in the relatively quiet gate area. "Brenda thinks Captain Washington is impersonating a pilot," Daniel replied, his tone conveying both disbelief and growing frustration. Rachel's face went white, then flushed with anger. "Are you serious? She's flown with our crew dozens of times. I served her coffee just 3 days ago on the Boston run. We talked about her daughter's college applications." The personal detail hung in the air, a reminder that Captain Washington wasn't just a uniform or a stereotype, but a real person with a real life and real relationships with her colleagues. Brenda overheard and spun around. "Oh sure. Now, everyone's part of the conspiracy. How much are they paying you people to go along with this charade? This is obviously some kind of coordinated scam." The paranoia was escalating, but I noticed something interesting. Captain Washington wasn't getting angry or defensive. If anything, she seemed almost pleased, like this was going exactly according to some plan only she understood. Skylar's livestream had exploded to 8,900 viewers. The comment section had become a waterfall of outrage, with hashtags like #Skyways discrimination and #airport racism trending in real time. People were sharing the stream across platforms, and the story was spreading far beyond Chicago. Flight 447's departure time was approaching. Only 18 minutes remained. But nobody seemed focused on getting passengers boarded. The entire terminal had become a stage for something much larger than a delayed flight. That's when I noticed Captain Washington check her phone. A text message flashed across the screen for just a moment, but I caught enough to see it was from someone listed as CEO office. She glanced at the message, then at her watch. An expensive Omega Speedmaster, the same model worn by NASA astronauts. "Perfect timing," she murmured almost to herself. Skylar's microphone picked up the comment, and her chat exploded with speculation. Perfect timing for what? Who's she texting? This is getting crazy. The pieces were falling into place in my mind, but the picture they were forming seemed impossible. Captain Washington's preparedness, her calm demeanor, the carefully organized documents, the expensive accessories, the mysterious phone contact, it all suggested this wasn't a random incident of prejudice. This was something much more sophisticated, and Brenda Kowalski had just walked into a trap she never saw coming. Supervisor Tom Richardson appeared from the jetway like a man on a mission, his Skyways Airlines management badge, swaying as he walked with the purposeful stride of someone who believed his authority was absolute. He was a tall, thin man in his late 40s, with graying hair, and the kind of confident bearing that suggested he'd never been seriously challenged in his 15 years with the company. His expression told me he'd already made up his mind about the situation before hearing any evidence. This wasn't someone coming to investigate, this was someone coming to validate a predetermined conclusion. "What seems to be the problem here?" he asked, though his tone and body language suggested he considered the problem to be Captain Washington's presence, not Brenda's behavior. "Tom, thank God you're here," Brenda said, straightening with visible relief like a student seeing their favorite teacher arrive during a difficult test. "This woman is impersonating a pilot. She has fake documents, fake ID, fake everything, the whole 9 yards. Richardson looked Captain Washington up and down with unconcealed contempt. his gaze lingering disapprovingly on her face, her hair, her very existence in this space. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step away from the secure area immediately. Airport security is on their way." Daniel Morrison stepped forward, his frustration finally boiling over. "Tom, this is Captain Washington. She's been with the company for 6 years. I'm her co-pilot on today's Denver flight. We've flown together dozens of times. Check the crew manifest." "That's impossible," Richardson replied without checking any system or documentation. His dismissal, so quick and complete, it revealed his decision was based on something other than facts. "Our captain assignments come through proper channels. Real captains report through crew scheduling, not by wandering around terminals in costumes." The word costumes hit the crowd like a slap. Several passengers gasped. Others began recording more frantically, sensing that Richardson had just made this situation much worse for himself and his company. Skylar's live stream viewer count hit 120,000. The comment section had become a torrent of outrage. "This is insane. Sue them all. Boycott Skyways. Someone call the NAACP." A passenger in the crowd shouted, "Just check the computer system. How hard is that?" Richardson turned sharply toward the voice, his face flushed with the anger of someone whose authority was being questioned. "Sir, please don't interfere with airport security matters. We handle these situations according to established protocol." What protocol? Rachel Torres couldn't contain herself anymore, her voice rising with indignation. "The protocol where you ignore a pilot's credentials because of how she looks. The protocol where you assume someone is a criminal based on their skin color. Ms. Torres, I suggest you watch your tone, or you'll be looking for new employment." Richardson's threat hung in the air like smoke, revealing the kind of workplace culture that had allowed this situation to develop in the first place. Captain Washington's phone rang with a tone that sounded different from a normal ringtone, more official, more important. The caller ID was visible to those nearby. "Chief Pilot Anderson," she answered calmly, putting the call on speaker so everyone could hear. "Good morning, Chief." A gruff voice erupted through the speaker, audible to everyone within 30 feet. "Washington, where are you? Flight 447 should be boarding passengers in 10 minutes. We've got weather moving in, and I need you wheels up on time." "I'm at gate B17, sir. There seems to be some confusion about my crew assignment." The pause that followed was pregnant with disbelief. "Confusion? What kind of confusion? You're scheduled as pilot in command on the Denver route. I assigned you myself last Friday. You're one of our most reliable captains." Richardson grabbed for the phone with desperate urgency. "Let me speak to whoever that is." Captain Washington smoothly pulled the device away, maintaining control, with an ease that spoke of someone accustomed to handling high-pressure situations. "Chief Mr. Richardson, the gate supervisor, believes I'm impersonating a pilot." Another pause, longer this time, followed by an explosion of profanity that could be heard 3 gates away. "Richardson, what the hell is wrong with you? Captain Washington is one of our most experienced pilots. She's got more flight time than half our senior crew and a perfect safety record." Richardson's face turned bright red. "Sir, I was just following security protocols. We can't be too careful these days." "Security protocols? My ass. You get her on that plane right now, or you'll be explaining to corporate why Flight 447 missed its departure slot and cost us our on-time performance numbers." The call ended with an audible click that somehow felt final, like a judge's gavel ending a trial. But Richardson wasn't finished. His supervisor authority had been publicly challenged, his judgment questioned in front of hundreds of witnesses, and his ego wouldn't accept defeat. The terminal fell silent except for the distant hum of jet engines and the quiet commentary from Skylar's live stream, which had now reached 180,000 viewers. Richardson stood frozen still, holding his empty hand where the phone had been, like he was hoping it might ring again with better news. But Tom Richardson wasn't the type of man to back down, especially not in front of a crowd this size. His 15 years of unchallenged authority had created a sense of infallibility that wouldn't crumble easily. "Anyone can fake a phone call," he announced to the crowd, his voice carrying the desperate edge of someone doubling down on a losing bet. "Voice changers, accomplices, sophisticated scams. I've seen it all in my years of gate operations. These people are getting more creative all the time." Airport Security Officer Martinez, a 20-year veteran with the weathered face of someone who'd seen every possible airport drama, looked at Richardson with open incredulity. "Sir, you just heard the chief pilot confirm her identity." What more evidence do you need? I heard a voice on the phone. Richardson corrected his paranoia deepening. For all we know, that was her boyfriend reading from a script. These scams are getting more sophisticated every year. That's when I noticed Captain Washington's demeanor shift subtly. She checked her watch again, that expensive Omega Speedmaster catching the light, and opened her phone with the calm deliberation of someone who was exactly where they needed to be at exactly the right time. She scrolled through her contacts and stopped at an entry labeled simply Director. The title was vague enough to be intriguing, important enough to suggest serious connections. She stepped slightly away from the group and made the call, speaking in a voice barely above a whisper. But the terminal acoustics and Skylar's sensitive phone microphone picked up fragments. Yes, I'm here at the gate. The situation is developing exactly as we discussed. Everything is being documented thoroughly. Board presentation. Systemic issues documented. The live stream comments went absolutely wild with speculation. Who is she calling board presentation? She's more than just a pilot. Plot twist incoming. The viewer count hit 22000 and was climbing exponentially. As Captain Washington ended her call, I noticed something that made my journalist instincts scream. A CNN news van was pulling up outside the terminal windows. In 15 years of covering aviation stories, I knew that news crews didn't just randomly appear at airports unless something genuinely newsworthy was happening. Reporter Amanda Foster rushed through the terminal entrance, her cameraman struggling to keep up with equipment. Richardson noticed the approaching news crew and his face went pale. Everyone needs to disperse immediately, he said, his voice cracking with panic. This is a security matter, not a media circus. No cameras allowed in secure areas. But it was too late. Amanda Foster's professional eye immediately identified the key players. The composed woman in the pilot uniform, the increasingly flustered supervisor, the crowd of recording passengers, and the crackling tension that indicated a major story unfolding in real time. This is Amanda Foster, CNN News, reporting live from O'Hare Airport, where we're witnessing what appears to be a significant discrimination incident involving a commercial airline pilot, she announced to her camera, while her producer worked to establish a live connection to Atlanta. Captain Washington smiled for the first time since this ordeal began. Not a smug smile or a vindictive grin, but the calm, satisfied expression of someone whose carefully laid plans were proceeding exactly as intended. She checked her watch one more time and said quietly, but with a power that somehow carried across the entire gate area, perfect timing. Her briefcase clicked open slightly, revealing thick legal documents, what appeared to be a bound report, and multiple official-looking badges. The title on one document was partially visible: Discrimination, Audit, Confidential, Skyways Airlines Internal Investigation. The pieces were finally coming together in my mind, and the picture they formed was staggering. This wasn't a random incident of workplace prejudice that had been caught on camera. This was a carefully orchestrated investigation, and Captain Washington wasn't just the target, she was the architect. Brenda Kowalski and Tom Richardson had just walked into the most sophisticated discrimination sting operation I'd ever witnessed, and they had no idea what was. The moment Captain Washington fully opened her briefcase, the entire dynamic of the situation shifted like tectonic plates realigning. Inside, thick legal documents sat in perfect order alongside a bound report marked confidential in bold red letters. Multiple official badges were clipped to the interior, and one laminated letter bore the unmistakable Skyways Airlines corporate seal with gold embossing. Mr. Richardson, Miss Kowalski, Captain Washington's voice cut through the chaos with quiet authority that somehow commanded more respect than all of Richardson's shouting had managed. I believe there's been a fundamental misunderstanding about who I am and why I'm here. She lifted the laminated document with ceremonial precision, and the corporate letterhead gleamed under the harsh fluorescent lights. I am Captain Avery Washington. I've been flying for Skyways Airlines for 6 years, as you've heard repeatedly confirmed by multiple crew members and my direct supervisor. But as of 6 a.m. this morning, I'm also the newly appointed Regional Director of Operations for Skyways Airlines Midwest Division. The terminal went dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop across 3 gate areas. Richardson's face drained of all color like someone had opened a valve. That's impossible, he stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. Captain Washington held up the appointment letter, and even from my position, I could see CEO Marcus Davidson's signature at the bottom, along with official corporate seals and today's date. The scope of her new position was breathtaking operational oversight for 47 airports across 12 states with direct reporting to the CEO and board of directors. Skylar's phone nearly slipped from her trembling hands. Her livestream comments exploded in real time. "She's the boss" plot twist of the century. "These people are so fired. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." CNN's Amanda Foster thrust her microphone forward with the predatory instinct of a veteran reporter sensing a career-defining story. "Captain Washington, can you confirm that you've just been promoted to regional director? What does this mean for the current situation?" The promotion was finalized at 5:30 a.m. this morning. Captain Washington replied with matter-of-fact tone of someone reading weather reports. "My first official duty in this new role was to conduct an unannounced assessment of gate operations and crew treatment protocols across our Midwest region." The words hit Richardson like physical blows. Assessment. Unannounced. First official duty. Every interaction today had been a test, and he had failed spectacularly. Every interaction from 6:47 a.m. until now has been thoroughly documented. Captain Washington continued gesturing towards Skylar's phone, which was still live streaming to 35000 viewers and growing. "Miss Martinez's broadcast provides excellent real-time evidence, as does CNN's coverage." She reached into her briefcase and withdrew a small professional-grade recording device with multiple microphones. Its red light had been blinking steadily throughout the entire ordeal, and of course I've been creating an official record of everything since the moment I approached this gate. Officer Martinez stepped back involuntarily, suddenly realizing he might be caught up in something much larger than a simple airport disturbance. Rachel Torres covered her mouth with both hands. Daniel Kim looked like he wanted to disappear into the terminal floor. However, Captain Washington continued, her voice taking on the clinical tone of a prosecutor laying out evidence. "That's not why you should be concerned, Mr. Richardson." She pulled out a tablet and opened a presentation marked Executive Board Meeting, 9:00 a.m., confidential. The slides were clearly visible, detailed charts, graphs, and legal references that spoke of months of preparation. "I'm presenting my comprehensive findings to the Skyways Airlines Board of Directors in exactly 1 hour and 15 minutes. The topic of today's emergency session: systemic discrimination in gate operations and its catastrophic impact on company liability, brand reputation, and financial stability." The crowd pressed closer, phones recording from every conceivable angle. Skylar's viewer count hit 4,000. Amanda Foster's cameraman was capturing everything in high definition for national broadcast. Captain Washington scrolled through slides with titles that made Richardson visibly wince: Federal Aviation Regulation 117.3, Crew Member Treatment Standards Title 7, Violations, Pattern Analysis, Social Media, Impact Assessment, Real-Time Brand Damage, Legal Liability Projections, Settlement Cost, Estimates and Recommended Personnel Actions. "My assistant has been monitoring social media responses in real time," she said, turning her tablet to show live analytics. "Miss Martinez's live stream is currently trending on 3 major platforms. The hashtag number Skyways Discrimination has generated 847 mentions in the past hour alone. Our stock price has dropped $1.30 per share in the last 23 minutes. She switched to a financial tracking app that showed Skyways Airlines stock in real-time decline. That represents a 3% drop, which translates to approximately $340 million in lost shareholder value based on current trading volume and social media sentiment analysis." A businessman in the crowd audibly gasped and immediately began frantically checking his own portfolio. Several other passengers were now staring at their phones with expressions of shock and dismay. Richardson's hands began to tremble as the magnitude of the situation crashed over him like a tsunami. Brenda Kowalski, who had been silent since Richardson's arrival, finally found her voice. Her usual confident demeanor had crumbled, replaced by the desperate confusion of someone who realized their world was collapsing in real time. "You can't— this isn't fair," she stammered, her voice cracking. "How was I supposed to know? You should have told us who you were." Captain Washington turned to face her with the measured gaze of a judge delivering a verdict. "Miss Kowalski, let me ask you a direct question. How exactly were you supposed to know what precisely?" The question hung in the air like a loaded weapon, and Brenda walked straight into the trap. You don't look like." Her voice trailed off as she realized the hole she was digging, but Captain Washington's steady gaze compelled her to continue. You don't look like what people expect when they think of airline captains. And what exactly do people expect airline captains to look like? Skylar's livestream comments went absolutely berserk. The viewer count hit 45000. Number Skyway's discrimination was now trending nationally on Twitter. Captain Washington reached into her briefcase and withdrew a comprehensive employee file that was easily 3 inches thick. Miss Kowalski, according to your personnel record, you've been with Skyways Airlines for 11 years. You've completed mandatory diversity training 4 separate times, in 2001, 4, 2017, 2020, and 2023. You've signed acknowledgement forms for our anti-discrimination policies every single year. She flipped through pages of documentation like a prosecutor presenting evidence to a jury. Training certificates, policy acknowledgements, performance reviews, all bearing Brenda's signature and confirming she understood company anti-discrimination policies. Your current badge displays our company motto, respect every customer. Yet today you refused to examine my credentials, dismissed my identification without inspection, accused me of terrorism and called security based solely on your visual assessment of what you believed a pilot should look like. The terminal felt like a courtroom. Captain Washington was the prosecutor, the evidence was overwhelming, and the verdict was inevitable. A new voice cut through the tension like a knife through silk. Captain Washington. Everyone turned to see a man in an expensive suit approaching rapidly, his stride purposeful and urgent. His badge read, Corporate Security, Executive Protection, and he carried himself with the bearing of someone accustomed to handling crises at the highest levels. Mr. Davidson's office sent me, he said, slightly out of breath. The CEO would like to speak with you immediately regarding the developing situation. He held out a secure satellite phone, the kind used for encrypted communications between corporate executives and government officials. CEO Marcus Davidson's voice crackled through the speaker with crystal clarity audible to everyone within 30 feet. Avery, I've been monitoring the news coverage and social media feeds. Are you all right? Do you need immediate assistance? I'm fine, Marcus Captain, Washington replied, and the casual use of the CEO's first name sent another shockwave through the crowd. The situation is developing exactly as we discussed during our emergency briefing this morning. The implication was staggering. This wasn't just a planned investigation, it was a coordinated operation involving the highest levels of corporate leadership. Excellent, Davidson's voice continued. I've called an emergency board meeting for 8:30 a.m. Legal counsel is already reviewing all available footage. The discrimination litigation team is standing by. How do you want to proceed with immediate personnel actions? Captain Washington looked directly at Richardson and Kowalski as she answered. Public accountability, Marcus. The response needs to be as visible and transparent as the discrimination itself. Understood completely. Legal has prepared comprehensive termination packages. HR is standing by for immediate implementation. And Avery, I want you to know that the board of directors is 100% behind you on this initiative. We're cleaning house starting today. Richardson stumbled backward, his face ashen as he processed what personnel actions and cleaning house meant for his career, his family, his future. Captain Washington closed the call and returned the phone to the security officer. She then opened another document from her briefcase, a thick legal brief stamped with official Department of Transportation and Equal Employment Opportunity Commission seals. Mr. Richardson, Ms. Kowalski, let me explain your current legal exposure so you can make informed decisions about your immediate future. She opened to a highlighted section that looked like it had been prepared by a team of attorneys. Federal Aviation Regulation 117. 3 specifically addresses crew member treatment and anti-discrimination protocols. Violations carry fines up to $400,000 per incident plus potential criminal charges for civil rights violations under federal law. The number $400,000 hit the crowd like a physical force, more than most people's mortgages, more than Richardson's annual salary. Additionally, Title VII of the Civil Rights Act provides for civil liability. Current case law suggests damages between $50,000 and $300,000 for workplace discrimination incidents, with significantly higher penalties when social media amplification is involved. She flipped to another page covered in legal citations. The Illinois State Human Rights Act provides additional penalties and remedies. And with 45000 people currently watching this live stream plus CNN's national coverage, she gestured toward the cameras that were broadcasting this confrontation to millions of viewers across the country. Well, let's just say that punitive damages tend to scale dramatically with public visibility and documented evidence. Amanda Foster leaned into her microphone for her live broadcast. This is unprecedented coverage of workplace discrimination being addressed in real time at one of America's busiest airports. We're witnessing what appears to be a carefully orchestrated corporate investigation that has trapped discriminatory behavior in the most public way possible. You have exactly 2 minutes to make a choice, Captain Washington announced with the finality of a judge delivering sentence. You can resign immediately with standard severance packages and legal protection from personal liability, or you can face federal investigation, public termination, and potential criminal prosecution for civil rights violations. She placed 2 pre-written resignation letters on the counter alongside 2 black pens. The severance packages include legal indemnification and confidentiality agreements. The resignation letters admit no wrongdoing but acknowledge policy violations. Your decision will determine whether you leave quietly or whether this becomes a federal case study. The silence stretched like a taut wire about to snap. 2 careers hung in the balance. 2 families' financial futures waited on the next words spoken. Brenda's shoulders sagged first. I'll resign, she whispered, her voice barely audible. 11 years with the company gone, a pension she'd never see, benefits that would vanish overnight. Richardson looked at her, then at the cameras broadcasting his humiliation to the world, then at his own reflection in Captain Washington's calm, professional eyes. Me too, he said, his voice hollow with defeat. Skylar's livestream hit 520,000 viewers as both employees signed their careers away with shaking hands. As they completed their resignations, Captain Washington opened her briefcase one final time and withdrew a thick binder marked Project Respect Implementation Phase 1. The real work was just beginning. 6 months later, I returned to O'Hare to write a follow-up story. A small bronze plaque now marked Gate B-17 Project Respect launch site, the 13th of February 2024, where change begins with courage. Skylar Martinez had parlayed her viral livestream into a full scholarship to Northwestern University's journalism program, where she was studying media ethics and social justice reporting. Brenda Kowalski was teaching customer service courses at a community college, focusing specifically on unconscious bias and inclusive customer treatment. Tom Richardson had found work with a nonprofit organization specializing in workplace culture reform and discrimination prevention. And Captain Avery Washington, she graced the cover of Time magazine as one of the year's most influential people. Her Project Respect initiative had spread to 47 airlines worldwide, creating systematic changes that protected millions of passengers and employees from discrimination. The financial impact was staggering. Skyways Airlines' stock had not only recovered but reached all-time highs, as investors rewarded companies with strong diversity and inclusion programs. The airline industry as a whole had invested over $2 billion in bias training and monitoring systems. But perhaps most importantly, discrimination complaints across the aviation industry had dropped by 73% in 6 months, proving that systematic change was possible when leadership committed to accountability. As I stood in that same gate area, watching passengers of every background move freely through security without fear of harassment, I was reminded of Captain Washington's final words from that extraordinary morning. Sometimes the most powerful response to "that's just how things are" is proving that's not how things have to be. What do you think? Did she go too far with this elaborate sting operation, or should corporate America have addressed these systemic problems years ago? Have you ever witnessed or experienced discrimination in your workplace? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to Black Stories Box for more incredible stories of ordinary people creating extraordinary change through courage and strategic thinking. Your voice matters, and your story could be the catalyst for the next transformation.